Everyone, welcome. You're watching Race to Power with me, Molly Gambhir. We are starting off with the latest from France. A high-stakes confidence vote set to take place. What lies ahead for the country? We are getting you the live updates. We also get you the latest from Nepal with massive protests in Nepal's capital against the government's sweeping social media ban. What are things looking like? The future of France hangs in balance. Parliamentarians are debating a vote of confidence against the Prime Minister, with a high-stakes vote slated afterwards. In fact, the Prime Minister was the first one to take the floor of the Assembly. He called it a moment of truth while pleading for debt reduction.
Cette épreuve de vérité.
This moment of truth, as the head of government, alongside the opinion of the President Macron, I wanted it. I wanted this moment. And some of you, probably most of you, the most sensible ones, thought it was unreasonable, that it was too big of a risk. But I think the exact opposite.
C'était déraisonnable, que c'était un trop grand risque.
The fate of the Prime Minister is at stake as the numbers are stacked against him. All major parties have announced to vote him out. He lacks the numbers in the National Assembly. His government is already functioning in minority to pass the confidence test. He needs the support of at least 76 members. The French Prime Minister can survive if some opposition parties walk out or 76 members from the opposition benches save the day for him. If the government falls, Macron will have two choices basically: to call for the snap election or elect a new prime minister. Whatever choice he makes, the ramifications of the political crisis will be seen far beyond Paris if the lawmakers cannot figure out how to cut public spending and a massive budget deficit. France is on EU notice. It must drag the budget deficit below 3%. That now stands at a sprawling 5.8%. And to cut this down, the government has proposed 44 billion euros budget cut plan, and this includes reducing the number of public holidays and placing a freeze on spending increases. The Prime Minister says it's not his own future, but the destiny of France at stake. The political and economic crisis is likely to deepen in France. The supporters of France's Block Everything movement have been preparing for their day of action on September 10. They have vowed to shut down the country. Their online call to protest, echoing the Yellow Vest uprising of 2018, grassroots revolt that began over fuel taxes and ballooned into a nationwide uprising. The potential for the ongoing political stalemate threatens Macron's presidency as well. His term ends in 2027 and he has vowed to complete it. But the looming street showdown political crisis, coupled with economic challenges, forming a perfect storm against him. And with us on the broadcast this minute is our correspondent, Ross Cullen. Let's just piece together how significant this moment really is for the country, because the ramifications of what happens here onwards will be felt across the country. Also a huge test for Macron himself.
Yes, for Emmanuel Macron himself, he's likely to have to appoint his fifth Prime Minister in just 2 years. We had this situation in December last year when the Prime Minister at the time, Michel Barnier, was ousted when the far left and the far right came together. They joined forces in opposition to be able to vote out the Prime Minister. 9 months later, it is the same situation. The far left and the far right have said that they will be voting in the same way, which is to eject the government from power. This is a vote of confidence the Prime Minister has called in himself. He's saying that the situation is at crisis levels. France has a budget deficit to deal with. France has a huge national debt also to be addressed. France must take the economic medicine that he and his government is prescribing, but there has been no support at all for those budget policy measures among the opposition. They have all agreed they will be voting him out this afternoon. In a couple of hours' time, MPs will be in the building. You can see behind me France's National Assembly casting their votes, and it is very unlikely that the Prime Minister will survive. And so this evening he will be very likely to tender his resignation, although he will remain in post in a caretaker position for the moment. And then there's all eyes on the Elysee Palace, where the President Emmanuel Macron will have to appoint a new Prime Minister. Now, the Prime Minister himself currently has given what is likely to be his departure speech, and then all of the different leaders of the political parties are able to make their speeches in response. We've heard from the Greens, who are calling for a Prime Minister from the left wing to be appointed. We've heard from the Conservatives, who say that France needs to compromise with a coalition, bringing together people from different political forces. So far, there's been no real coalition at all that's been able to be forged between different political ideologies in any recent memory here in France. We're also likely to hear from the far right as well, from the National Rally, which is the biggest single party in Parliament. So a major day for French politics, with ramifications that will be going on long beyond today, but we could well have the same situation that we had in December, which is the ousting of a Prime Minister by the opposition.
Not the kind of deja vu that the people on the ground would want to feel. We're leaving it there for the moment. Thanks very much. Shifting focus now, Nepal's Home Minister has resigned from his post. This comes as the country is facing the deadliest protest in recent times. 16 people have lost their lives. Over 70 have been left injured during those massive protests in the capital Kathmandu against the government's sweeping social media ban. Now, in the latest, the army has been deployed in the capital to control the situation. Thousands of protesters, water cannons, tear gas. There is chaos outside the parliament as the youth smashed through the police lines and stormed through the restricted zones. One protester
तोडेर विद्यार्थीहरू अगाडि बढेका छन् हेर्नुहोस् जेन्जी युवा
The latest images showing those protesters on the streets of Kathmandu chanting slogans, holding banners.
I'm protesting because there are unfinished roads and many problems are unresolved. And for these solutions, I believe that as a Army IDA, this is just the beginning of all the solutions. So I believe showing anger and showing motivation that this nation can change, I believe that we all can also change as well with the nation.
More than 70 people have been injured. They are undergoing treatment. What started out as frustrated social media posts has now exploded into one of the most dramatic youth uprisings in the country's history. In fact, the city's roads filled with students and young adults waving those placards, chanting and fighting for the right to connect. According to reports in the local media, a curfew has been imposed in some parts of the capital. The police had to use water cannons and tear gas as few protesters tried to enter the parliament building. Nepal's sudden ban of 26 social media platforms, including Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, sparked the outrage. For the hyper-connected youth, this was not just about losing access to those platforms. It was about government censorship, the corruption, and the decades of elite neglect. In fact, the government's cabinet decided last week to give the social media companies 7 days to register in Nepal and to establish a point of contact, designate a resident grievance handling officer and a compliance officer. The decision came after a Supreme Court order in September last year. Nepal passed a directive in 2023 that required social media platforms to register and establish a local presence. And our correspondent, Saloni Murarka, has been tracking those developments, getting us the latest from on the ground.
As you can see behind me, there's a still clash going on between both the sides. There have been, police have fired over 500 tear gases. Several people have been injured with rubber bullets that have been fired from the other side. However, the situation is still not under control. Property has been damaged. As you can see, the condition around the road, where all the destructions and the stone pelting that took place in the past few hours, the tear gases that have been fired continuously. APF has deployed more officials on ground. However, the situation is still not under control. Many people, as we speak, barged inside the parliament building. This is one of the gates of the parliament, of the Nepal parliament. And as you can see, just a while back, many of the protesters, they barged inside the building, and even many of the police officials have been injured.
And let's go straight across now to Saloni Murarka, who's with us live on the phone line. Saloni, we are understanding that the latest at this point being that the Home Minister of the country has also stepped down amid those heated protests, dramatic images that you've been getting to us as well from on the ground. Tell us more at this point.
Yes, that's right, because what we saw, it began as a peaceful demonstration early in the morning, like after 9, 10 o'clock. And so the protest, which was led by the Chinese activists and across Nepal, not only in Kathmandu, in fact. Following which the Home Minister's role has started to begin in question. Many of his own party leaders questioned his role and condemned the use of the force that led to a high number of casualties. To which, as per the sources, the Home Minister has accepted his responsibility, and he says that the meeting agreed that Lekhak must resign. That's the Home Minister's name, Ramesh Lekhak. And he accepted the responsibility. But he has not resigned yet, but it is expected to come out soon. As the situation unfolded on ground, the Home Minister was under fire for a heavy-handed response to the movement. And as we speak, he is preparing to step down, but officially the resignation letter has not been handed over, on which we'll be quickly receiving some updates.
All right, we're leaving it there for the moment. Thanks very much for joining us with those updates. We will, of course, keep a close eye on the latest coming in from Nepal, but shifting focus now to Japan, where the ruling party is heading for a high-stakes leadership race. A day after the Prime Minister announced his resignation, the first leader to dive into that context is Toshimitsu Motegi. Motegi has previously served as the Foreign Minister and Trade Minister. He is among a clutch of contenders who is popularly known as Trump Whisperer because of the role that he played in the US-Japan trade talks. With strong English language skills and Harvard education, he is pitching himself as an economic reviver. At the time when Japan is dealing with rising cost of living, national debt, turbulent global trade dynamics, the race for the party presidency of Japan's ruling party is expected to be crowded. Many leaders vying for the top job. Names of several potential candidates doing the rounds in the political corridors. First up, Sanae Takaichi. She could make history as Japan's first woman prime minister. She is known for her conservative push to revise the pacifist constitution. On the economy, she is openly critical of the Bank of Japan's rate hikes, arguing instead for more government spending. Then there is Shinjiro Koizumi. He would be the youngest prime minister in modern times if he wins. He carries the weight of a political dynasty and has pitched himself as a reformer. Koizumi stayed close to Ishiba as the agriculture minister, where he tackled soaring rice prices. Yoshimasa Hayashi also standing out for his long record of steady service. He has been a go-to pinch hitter in multiple portfolios, from defense to foreign affairs. He is a strong voice for keeping the central bank independent. We also have Yoshihiko Noda, who has previously served as Prime Minister from 2011 to 2012. Known as a fiscal hawk, he once championed tax hikes to contain debt. He also wants the Bank of Japan to gradually unwind its long-running stimulus. And finally, Yuichiro Tamaki. He leads a center-right party and has co-founded the Democratic Party for the People. He supports expanding Japan's nuclear power and defense capacity. For him, the Bank of Japan should not rush an exit from stimulus, at least not until real wages start to rise. So the stage is set. The country's leadership race could reshape both domestic policy and its role on the global stage. Party votes to elect president, who is a de facto candidate for prime ministership, and the winner of the LDP leadership will be facing other opposition candidates. Both houses of parliament will vote to elect the next prime minister. But as we move from leadership race to race from prime ministership, things will get complicated for the Liberal Democratic Party. Japan's parliament is fractured. No party carries the members to outrightly form the government. Policy paralysis and frequent deadlocks, opposition or LDP, any leader who takes the baton from Ishiba is likely to seek fresh mandate to avoid policy paralysis and deadlocks. Tensions rising in Turkey. In Istanbul, police have fired tear gas to disperse hundreds of protesters outside the headquarters of the country's main opposition party. These are the latest images that we're getting to you from Istanbul, where protesters and the police came face to face outside the CHP headquarters. The police fired tear gas and pepper spray to disperse the crowd. At least 20 people have been detained so far. Up to 200 demonstrators gathered outside the CHP headquarters in Istanbul. Riot police moved in to maintain the order. Barricades were placed outside the party headquarters to stop the protesters from flocking into the site. The latest round of protests coming after the court ousted Istanbul's CHP leader and 200 members of his team. The court-appointed replacement team was expected to take over the office today. But angry protesters gathered outside the office to oppose the move, and the Interior Minister has defended the court's decision, warning that authorities will act resolutely against what he called attempts to defy the rule of law. The party's chairman, meanwhile, denounced the police action as a siege and invited citizens to gather in support. He urged the people to demonstrate against a court order and the crackdown against his party.
Attacking the Republican People's Party is the same as attacking the Republic. We will stand against people attacking our Republic with our will as strong as steel and with no fear, with the same determination and perseverance of 105 years ago. We are not afraid, we are not surrendering, and we won't surrender.
Tensions have been rising between the president's government and the opposition. The CHP scored a major victory in last year's local elections, dealing Erdogan's ruling AK party one of its biggest defeats in decades. The opposition has been dragged into a series of legal cases after the election win. The cases are widely seen as politically motivated. In fact, the country saw the largest protest movement after the arrest of Istanbul's mayor, who is regarded by many as Erdogan's strongest potential challenger. On to Spain now, where the Prime Minister has launched his toughest attack yet on Israel. He accuses Netanyahu's government of exterminating a defenseless people, quote unquote, as tensions between the two sides escalate after Spain's decision to accept a two-state solution for Palestine. Sanchez announced a total of 9 measures against Israel. They include a total ban on weapon sales, a prohibition on the use of Spanish ports and the airspace for Israeli military supplies, and travel restrictions on people he says are responsible for war crimes. Sanchez lashed out at what he termed brutal violations in Gaza.
The data speaks for itself. 63,000 dead, 159,000 injured, 250,000 people at risk of acute malnutrition, and nearly 2,000 people displaced from their homes, half of these underage. This is not self-defense. It is not even an attack. It is the extermination of a defenseless people. It is breaking all the rules of humanitarian law.
No es ni siquiera atacar.
The Prime Minister says the steps may not end the conflict, but they send out a clear message. Sanchez said defending Israel's security is one thing, but bombing hospitals, starving civilians and killing children is another, according to him. Israel's response was immediate. It accused Sanchez of quote-unquote wild and hateful rhetoric and of pushing an anti-Semitic agenda. Israel's foreign minister, meanwhile, has banned 2 senior Spanish ministers from entering the country. Both are outspoken critics of Israel's war in Gaza. Israel says they are exploiting Sanchez's political weakness and dragging him further into an anti-Israel position. The row also reflects a deeper divide. Spain is among the first European countries to formally recognize a Palestinian state. Ireland and Norway joined that move earlier this year, and Israel has fiercely rejected the decision, saying it rewards Hamas and undermines peace. The dispute over Gaza and now the two-state question has left relations between the two sides at a low point. Spain insists it will not be intimidated. It says its measures defend international law and human rights. As the war continues, even the diplomatic fallout does, this time between Israel and one of Europe's most outspoken critics. A major setback for Argentina's president. Meanwhile, the leader has suffered a crushing defeat in the provincial elections and is now promising to push his economic reforms even faster. With 91% of votes counted, the centre-left coalition got over 47% votes compared to just 34% for the president's ruling party. Buenos Aires is the country's economic powerhouse. It produces more than 30% of Argentina's GDP and home to 40% of the electorate. And that makes this result a critical bellwether. Just 6 weeks before the midterm elections, a deflated Milei took the stage, in fact, in silence, far removed from his usual fiery campaign style. He acknowledged mistakes but insisted he would not change course.
We will not take a step back, not even a millimeter, in government policy. The course is not only confirmed, but will be further accelerated and deepened.
Since taking office in December, the 54-year-old economist has slashed public spending, cut tens of thousands of state jobs, and launched a deregulation drive. He has also won praise for reducing inflation and wiping out the fiscal deficit. The government is also battling political damage from a corruption scandal involving the president's sister and closest advisor. In August, both were pelted with stones by angry protesters during a campaign rally. On that note, it's a wrap on this edition for now. Thanks for watching.
The stress of our world can take a toll on our physical and emotional health. Here, in New York's Catskill Mountains, lies a luxurious